Hello, I'm Lord Jimsicle, and you're watching You Have Issues, a programme all about comics. This summer, we'll witness the conclusion to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight saga. All the trailers are out, and as far as plot details go, here's what we've managed to ascertain from them. Batman has gone into hiding after the events of The Dark Knight, and must return to defend Gotham from an emerging terrorist threat, led by the steroid-enhanced nutcase, Bane. For those of you who aren't aware of the character outside the information we've been given from the upcoming movie, here's a small summary about the character and how he came to be in the comics. Bane is an escaped convict who was raised in a prison since birth to serve his father's sentence on the fictional South American island of Santa Prisca. He killed to defend himself at an early age and eventually grew to the top of the prison ranks. He wasn't all brawn though. An elderly priest would give Bane a classical education within the prison walls. Bane was tormented by nightmares as a child and encountered an apparition of his future self in one of them. He told Bane that he is destined to be a ruler and that only one thing will stand in his way. He then takes form of a demonic bat entity, which frightens Bane. As the years go on, he starts to hear tales from other prisoners about Gotham City and particularly Batman. Bane believes that this is a representation of the creature that haunted him in his dreams, and thus his priority is to destroy the Batman. The prison officials take notice of Bane's ascension to king of the prison and subject him to be a test subject for a strange new drug called Venom, which has killed all previous test subjects. Not only did he survive the experiment, but it hugely enhanced his physical strength. Bane then escapes the prison and then travels to Gotham City with the intention of ruling it. Tom Hardy is portraying Bane, and he's bulked up considerably for the role. Naturally, as it's a Chris Nolan film, some changes have to be made. Any changes that are done by Nolan to adapt characters for a movie are always described as his take on the character, which of course means it will be universally accepted regardless of how drastic said changes are. In this case, Nolan has done away with the Venom enhancement and replaced it with the mask feeding Bane a gas that makes him impervious to pain, as he suffered a huge injury early on in his life and is in chronic pain without it. This makes sense and would fit the style and tone of Nolan's movie, as it would be a huge obstacle for Batman if the villain has trouble feeling pain. But then it's quite simple to defeat him, as all Batman has to do is just deliver a couple of damaging blows, break a few bones, and then suddenly rip the mask off. Job done. It looks like they've done away with the prison backstory, as it would simply take too much out of the running time to explain properly. So they decided they can easily just establish him as a mysterious villain and keep one or two elements of the character in there. After viewing the 6-minute prologue to The Dark Knight Rises, I was then half convinced that Bane would be a convincing threat to Batman. By half convinced, I mean that by sheer size and brutality, he would at the very least be a match for Bruce in combat. But I had a lot of trouble understanding any of Bane's dialogue. Obviously wearing that mask will cause a few production problems, but I naturally assumed that it will be dubbed over in post-production, as it's difficult enough having Hardy wear such a mask and still be able to have audible and comprehensible dialogue. Mind you, the mask would serve as a brilliant online trend. When it comes out on DVD, just take all the scenes with Bane in it and then just put your own dialogue over the top of it to create some really funny dialogue exchanges. Some really good examples of this are Brick Vader and the Hitler Reacts videos. Some would even go as far as saying that Nolan deliberately made his voice this way just to stir up controversy and to get people talking about the film. The film is about Batman, and it's Christopher Nolan's final film in the trilogy. Is that not enough to get people talking? I mean, if that's the case, then he has stooped f***ing low. Well, Nolan has since said that he's going to put more work into clearing up some of Bane's dialogue, but how can he fix it short of redubbing it? Time will tell. There is little in the way of whether Bane's conflict with Batman is a personal one like in the comics, or if he's just battling someone who's simply standing in his way. I would put my money on it being the latter, because a hulking brute raised in a prison being tormented by bat-shaped bogeymen in his dreams is hardly something Hollywood can emulate without being a parody. There is a riot scene that can only be described as an Occupy Gotham movement. This makes sense when put in context with Selina Kyle's dialogue exchange with Bruce over a dance. The quote goes,
"You think this can last? There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. You and your friends better batten down the hatches. 'Cause when it hits, you're all gonna wonder how you ever thought you could live so large and leave so little for the rest of us."
To me, this suggests themes of anti-capitalism and income equality, which is a bit unusual for a Batman comic, but I reckon Nolan's going to pull it off well. Hell, he made The Dark Knight feel like a hard-boiled crime drama when Batman wasn't around. The chanting heard in the trailers is particularly intriguing. It's very chilling stuff, but at this point we don't know anything about it other than the fact that it means rise. Personally, I suspect it may have something to do with the flashback appearance of Ra's al Ghul in the movie, but that's just a random guess. I'm also speculating that Ra's may have something to do with Bane, maybe as a failed student of the League of Shadows, or possibly as a potential peer, akin to the miniseries Batman Bane of the Demon released in 1998. Anne Hathaway is to portray Catwoman, though I feel having her in the film is just another unnecessary character hogging screen time. I just honestly don't see how she could possibly fit amongst Bane's character development, Bruce's struggle with becoming Batman again, along with the vast destruction going on around the city. For something like this to work, the civilian identity of Selina Kyle should have been introduced in the previous movie and then have the Catwoman disguise built upon in the next movie. It's either that or ignore the Catwoman identity altogether and just have her as a love interest for Bruce. The costume's pretty naff, and I'm not pleased at all that she's using a gun, although some would argue that it wouldn't be realistic to use a whip, but fuck them. There is nothing realistic about dressing up in a costume with a mammal or an animal motif and fighting crime. Superheroes aren't realistic, that's what makes them awesome! It's this kind of thinking that makes Nolan's films ashamed to be called superhero movies. Anyway, I digress. As far as villains go, Spider-Man 3 proved that too many villains can just clog up the movie and will just have each character chewing the scenery in the little screen time they've been allocated. The production team are looking into Batman tomes such as Nightfall, the major 90s crossover No Man's Land, and Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. It seems to me they'll be taking a few of the following themes from these books. A no-brainer, as this is the most famous Bane story. This tale is known for fully showing Bane wearing out Batman before taking him head-on in Wayne Manor, resulting in Bruce being crippled by the muscled brute. In the first teaser trailer, there's a brief glimpse of Bane stomping towards a weary Batman in what appears to be the Batcave. In the second trailer, there is another glimpse of Bane towering over a defeated and unmasked Batman. This will no doubt draw on the idea that Gotham will be overrun by gangs after the city is devastated by an earthquake. In the movie, I suspect that a modest amount of destruction will be attributed to Bane through use of a rumoured earthquake machine. I think the only element they're going to take from this is that Bruce has been away for a long time and then comes back, but not as in great shape as before. This will mean plenty of scenes where Batman will get his arse handed to him before eventually rising to dish out some Bat-shaped justice the way he always does. I really hope they don't lift any of Batman's dialogue from here, because I really think we could do without some of the Miller dickery in this movie. How will it end? Well, I hope it doesn't end with the death of Bruce like many people are speculating. Some are suggesting that Gotham officer John Blake is going to take over the mantle of Batman, which I don't think is feasible at all. Bruce trained for many years before donning the costume to fight crime, as well as handling a large fortune to finance all the equipment he uses. A cop's salary is not going to afford that. Well, Nightwing was a cop during the day, but he wasn't funding his vigilante activities on his police wages. He had a trust fund set up by Bruce, which came to an impressive amount to at least fund a small amount of weapons, as Grayson doesn't care much for elaborate toys and gadgets, preferring to use his acrobatics. I just think it wouldn't make sense for Bruce to hand over the Batman mantle to an unknown. Personally, I haven't got any idea how the film's going to end, apart from the suggestion that Bruce will die or be incarcerated, which I'm hoping doesn't happen. After all the misery in the previous film, I think a happy ending is long overdue. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you for watching this episode of You Have Issues. I'm Lord Jimsicle, and before I go, here are the fill in the blanks entries from the last episode. And now, here is this week's one. Take care, I'll see you next week.